The message. Yes, Ta-Nehisi Coates. You already know what it is. Reflections on the message, y'all. Stay tuned because I'm going in on what my thoughts were after reading this phenomenal piece of work. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are the very core, the very foundation as to why we have low levels of literacy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. Yes, indeed, y'all. Welcome. Thank you all for joining me. And I'm just going to get right on into it because I've been super excited about giving my reflections on the book, The Message, by our dear brother, Ta-Nehisi Coates. This brother right here has been in the media big time ever since the release of this book, okay? And of course, the main reason why he's been in the media that's rooted in the foundation of white supremacy, the false notion of the white supremacy, is because of his section talking about the genocide that's happening as we speak on Palestinian people by the Israeli government. And we know it's not all Israeli people, okay? We know that. We know there are people who subscribe to the Jewish faith, and they are adamantly against the genocide, and they are speaking out against it. All right, so I just want to make that clear. But the point I'm bringing that up first is because this is why a lot of us have been hearing about Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, The Message. Well, guess what I'm going to do, y'all? I'm going to talk about his book, give my reflections, and I'm rooting it in the foundation of how Black people are to each other, our ways of how we interact, our ways of knowing, okay? And I get that. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Greg Carr for educating us. And it wasn't just him. This is where I learned it from, though, first, hearing it from him. But it was him and a team of other African scholars who, when they were creating a Black curriculum, they had 6 parts to this Black curriculum, right? And so one of the parts is who Black people are to each other, our governance structure. And that's what I wanted to root this reflection in talking about the message. So let me begin. First, one of the things that I really, really appreciated that Ta-Nehisi did was in his talking about this book, writing this book rather, he talks about, of course, his roots, his foundation, where he gets where he got his writing from, the skills of wanting to write, the skills of wanting to be able to tell his story. Well, when he talked about how he was raised around books, around consciousness, having a father, Paul Coates, who's still living to this day, who started the famous publishing company, the Black Classic Press, and his mother, very well read, artist, we talked about that, a dancer. This is his foundation. His parents were deeply rooted in making sure that Ta-Nehisi and his siblings knew who they are and they loved who they were, okay? That's the foundation that he got. So it made sense that with him writing this book and him talking about how, the love of language, the love of books, and then that transferred into him to love of poetry, listening to the last poets, listening to the hip hop brothers and sisters, talking about referencing Rakim and, KRS-One, all of these people those of us in the Black community who you just have a little bit of knowledge of hip hop, you know those names. You know KRS-One. You know about Rakim. All right. You know about the Grandmaster Flash and the song The Message. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. This is where he comes from. Growing up in the city of Baltimore, in the hood, seeing all kind of degradation, seeing all kind of stuff going all around him, that he begins to learn early that something ain't right. There's something wrong with this picture. This is his foundation. And so this is where I'm starting my reflections, because this is one of the things that I want us to get away from, is we have to, as much as possible, stop rooting our, when we're talking about different things, we tend to talk about things from a white supremacist lens. We're coming from the social structures lens. And of course, we have to do that. And we've had to do that because it was for our survival. We know we have to understand what our oppressor, what they think, what they like, what they feel, what they do. These are things in which we had to learn, because in order for us to survive in this hostile system that hates African people, period, full stop. And so by Ta-Nehisi Coates being reared in that, it just makes sense that not only did he become a phenomenal writer, but a writer who is understanding about having courage, a knowledge seeker, somebody who seeks to, with his writing, as he talked about, he wants to save the world. And how in his mindset, he believes that the words that he's conveying, that they are something that should be impactful and meaningful, transformative. These are things that he was doing in this book. Like, for example, when he talked about one of the things that in reference to his foundation of who he is, he talked about one of the memories that he had when he was making a diorama with his mom. And he talked about, they're sitting at the table and everything like that, and, getting all the materials that's needed. Then he talked about how it was a picture that his mom had got. And it was this picture that was found of his father. And he said that his father, the picture of his father had his legs crossed, a fisherman's cap, and a book in his hand. And the caption read, "Daddy reads all the time. Daddy says he reads to learn." When I read that, it was like my heart just literally, it was like it just melted. Because I'm like, how often do we hear, especially a young Black boy, having a memory of his father reading books, and then having that caption to say, "Daddy reads all the time. Daddy says he reads to learn." I mean, right there, to me, that's a lesson in itself that an educator could make just around that alone. Just the image of that. And you talk about the studies that have been done in terms of how when kids who don't read, kids who struggle with being literate, one of the main reasons is because they don't see the adults around them reading. They don't have their mothers or fathers or caregivers around them reading. But here it is, he has that memory of that. I mean, that was just so special and dope. To me, those were the moments. Those were the reflections that I wanted to impart to you all, that I wanted you all to understand that these are the things that we need to pay attention to. And the fact that his mother was the type of mom who was involved in his learning. And she's like, "Okay, yeah, you got the science project, cool. We're gonna make sure we get, the poster boards, and we get the glue and the scissors and all the different things that we need so that you can have a phenomenal project." Those are the stories. Those are the reflections that I wanted to talk about. Because again, our foundation is what makes us. And then when he talked about as well, the aspect of him being in school and how he remembered, getting in trouble a lot because he wasn't following instructions a lot, or there were certain things that he wasn't able to grasp. And he even talked about, just like even with his writing, the way his writing would look. And that is funny because he had made a reference to saying how he had showed some of his writing to some of his friends who were younger than him. He said, basically, they're looking at his writing like, man, that's a classic ADHD type of kid. And it's like, okay, yes, that's fine. That may be an area where he struggled with in terms of writing legibly. Was even talked about that, how he has to make sure that he's writing in capital letters to make sure that the letters are legible, they're neat, they're orderly. And he even understood that. He said those things are important. But the things that he realized, though, is when it comes to this educational system, which leads me to the next point I wanted to make, is how he talked about how this educational system, it's not about trying to really get you to critically think or problem solve or be creative or to bring out your gifts. It's literally about seeing, well, who's going to make sure, what child in here is going to be the one who's going to conform? We want to get as many conformists as possible. Every ounce of information that I give you, I want to make sure that you're going to regurgitate it right back to me on that test. And the moment that I see that you've done that in a perfect way, you get an A. You won. You did it. You are so educated. But then if you ask a lot of the kids, what did they learn when they get out of school? Or do they remember a lot of stuff? You ask somebody who graduated. Do you remember the things that you learned? Majority of the stuff you don't. But you know the things that people did remember? That teacher who was challenging them, that teacher who was about making a connection, that teacher who was about being impactful, that teacher who was about trying to help bring out those gifts, that your God-given gifts. Those are the teachers. Those are the coaches, the mentors, the tutors. Those are the ones that the kids remember. Think about it. I think about that in my own life. Just different aspects of my life in which I remember pivotal moments where I had those learning moments, or people in your family. I think about, again, my grandmother, Gloria Salee Rice, rest in peace, who she was the one who gave us the foundation of being able to be activists in the world, speaking up when you see injustice happening. I was a part of a sit-in that we had at Cleveland State University, my very first sit-in, my only sit-in, when it was about protesting. I believe Dr. Raymond Winbush, he had got fired from his position, or they wouldn't give him a raise. I can't remember. It was one of the two. I know it was about his position. He was, I believe, the director of minority affairs. And this is when I was like 15, okay? And I'll never forget, because my grandmother, she would always have us come and be like, you got to come with us. We got to, here's your picket sign. We had to protest. We had to pass out this. And this one particular time, and this is right before the sit-in, and I said, Granny, I said, what is this about? It was like, she like, okay, all right. Because she was used to dictating. She give the rules and you follow them. But this time, I said, listen, I need to know now. I'm starting to critically think. I'm starting to, figure out and process stuff on my own and not just conforming. And I said, what are we doing? What is this about? I mean, that's how I was able to articulate for you guys why we were there. Okay. And so right there, those are the moments that I think about with, again, our dear brother Ta-Nehisi, giving those reflections, okay, talking about this in his, reflections of the different places that he visited, right? And just like with him going to Senegal And I love the fact how he did not want to have those guided tours. To me, that was very, very important. Again, with these reflections that I'm giving, it's more about giving us lessons about how we need to approach learning, education, how we need to take the deep dive into who we are and continuously break away the shackles of this system that is totally anti-human. Okay? When you are hell-bent on oppressing people, you are anti-humanity, period. You don't want to see a person grow into their full self. You want to see a person do everything you tell them to do. And if they don't, they either get beat for it, tortured for it, they don't get the prize, they get ostracized, they get labeled as somebody who is a derelict, they're crazy, they're strange. How dare you challenge the system, right? And so for him to be in Senegal, he said, you know what? I want to go and get immersed in the culture. I'm coming home and I want to see and feel and touch for myself. I don't want it to be this guided tour where, okay, this is this over here and see, this is this over here. And you don't have time to really just sit and think, look at the people, observe, and just be quiet. Because that's another thing too. One of the beautiful things of what I got, even just with him, and when a person is a great writer, they know how to shut up. Because when you're writing stuff, you have to be observant. You can't always have conversations with people. Now, of course, that's going to be part of it, obviously, because he did. Yes, he had conversations with people talking about different things. These are things that he did. But you have to also learn the art of being quiet, sitting still. But how was he able to do that? I truly believe that foundation, again, came from him learning that from reading. Because that's what reading does. And that's why he makes these references about reading books, okay? And he talks about, just the wonders, the beauty of what books does for a person. And that's one of the things that reading does. It teaches you how to sit still, you in that book, reflect, be able to process things. Sometimes, if you like me, you take notes, you got your pen there because you want to write little things in the pages, on the side, reflections that you may have. You might put a question mark. Maybe it was something you read you didn't quite understand, so you put a question mark. These are things that I do. And these are things that we should be teaching our children to do. And I truly believe these are skills that have to be modeled because this wasn't something that I learned from anybody. Just like I tell my story often, how I was not raised like how a Ta-Nehisi was, with books everywhere, and my parents reading and all of that type of stuff, and getting stories read to me, and learning about different Black authors and all of that. No, only thing I remember two things in terms of when it came to literacy. Three rather. Number one, my mother, she made sure that we had the set of encyclopedias. Full stop. My Black folks, right? You had to have them encyclopedias in your house, just like Ta-Nehisi talked about too. You had them encyclopedias in your house. That's number one. Number two, my mother, she had went to school. She had went to Tri-C to get her associate's degree. I remember that. And I actually remember her taking a class in shorthand. I remember learning about that. I think I was like maybe about 8 or 9 years old. That memory literally just came in my mind. And I remember her studying to get her degree, her associate's degree. And then I will remember my father, he would read the newspaper. So those are like the literacy moments that I remember having, which is great. You know what I'm saying? Those things, are fine. I that's how I got it in. But for real, I grew up, for the most part, I was a TV head. Okay. And so, in saying that, it is a trust and believe, it's a stark difference when you have a kid who's being raised around literacy and reading and books, and your parents telling you, well, I want you to go look up that story. Well, here's a book on this, just like Ta-Nehisi talked about that book on that football player. I think it was David Stingley, if I'm not mistaken, that the name of that football player. And so that right there, and he was just, excited, you know what I'm saying, about these particular football players or whatever. And then finding out, especially after the one who had got hit, because I think that's what it was. He had got hit by the David Stingley guy, and then his dad gave him a book on him. So yeah, right there, Ta-Nehisi was being taught how to research, how books, how reading, how going to look up things, having discussions with your parents about different things. That's his foundation of education. It wasn't his parents saying, okay, I got to send you to school and they got to teach you this, and and whoop-de-whoop, and that's how you're going to learn how to be a good writer. That's how you're going to learn how to make sure you know how to read. No, he didn't get that. No, he got them conscious parents. Just like I said, the brother Paul Coates started Black Classic Press. That's still going on to this day. Okay, so, but I wanted to say, what did he say? Another aspect, how he called his books his children, right? That right there, to me, I really love that. And I remember putting that in the comments section when I'm a member of this platform called Nubia that was started by Karen Hunter. And this is a platform where she has, like I've mentioned, Dr. Greg Carr, who does this in class with Carr. She has somebody on who's teaching the Meta Necher, which is that Egyptian form of writing. They have yoga, it's a sister on there. She does Maroon's medicine chest. It's so many different things. I highly recommend that you guys be a part of that platform. It's an investment, trust and believe. But I remember putting a comment right before in class with Carr, and I talked about that, how I love how he referenced how his books were like his children, right? And so, and then he said in there with that, like he basically was saying that with the books, even though you create these books, in a nutshell, when somebody gets a hold of that book, they are going to, they're going to have their own interaction with that book. Okay, so it may not be whatever it is whatever thoughts you had in terms of your intentions and how you wrote it and whatever you're thinking, that person who's ever reading that book, they're going to get whatever they get from that book. That right there, these are the things that we need to make sure that we are saying to our youth and to each other as adults. Because again, there are people out here who are there like literally, they're like, you know what, I didn't grow up reading. They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And they're like, now I have to relearn. I didn't grow up around reading. And now I want to start reading. I want to start understanding, how to be able to read things. And just like I said, I gave the example of how I highly recommend to people, number one, when you're reading, especially you get started with reading, number one, make sure that you get something that you can relate to. That's right there. That's what you need, because that's what's going to hook you into wanting to read more and more. You develop a thirst for it. You're like, wow, I want more of that. Just like with anything in life, right? It's not, rocket science. It's not like you're trying to solve this, very astronomical math equation. Literally, it's something as simple as, let me find something that I'm connected to, something that's of my interest, and then let me get a book on that, and then I get more and more. Then secondly, if there are questions that you have with something that you're reading, I would recommend make sure you have if you don't want to write in your book, have you a notebook and a pen. Take some notes. Write down some different things that you may not understood. But sometimes we could be reading stuff and you may not understand everything. Just like in his book, there are certain things that I had put question marks on. I'm like, okay, I wasn't for sure about that. I want to get more clarity on that. I don't have it, unfortunately, right here in front of me. But those are things I wanted to reflect upon. Another thing, I just looked right here on my notes, right? How he referenced, I never heard of this man, Paulo Freire. I believe that's how you pronounce the last name. And this was an educator. He was a Brazilian educator. And how he talked about he referenced him because this educator was talking about how the educational system is like a banking system, okay? And how basically they make these like deposits into the kids. And the whole point is to get them to, page 73. So how he referenced Paulo Freire, and this is on page 73. Okay. And what he said was, the more students work at storing the deposits entrusted to them, the less they develop the critical consciousness, which will result from their intervention in the world as transformers of that world. Okay? The more completely they accept the passive role imposed on them, the more they tend simply to adapt to the world as it is and to the fragmented view of reality deposited into them. Okay? Right there. Again, just like what I talked about before. How many times, especially for my homeschoolers out there, my folks, y'all, one of the main reasons why folks take their kids out of the schools because they're tired of things being deposited into them. And the way to show that they have learned and get the A and they have got all of these, phenomenal rewards, honor roll, and all of that is because they were able to spit out, regurgitate, whatever you want to use, all the stuff that was put into them. But the moment that child who's in the class, maybe they're they're moving around, they gotta make little paper balls. They're doing all this, but they're listening. They're listening, right? So then they ask a question like, how come you never talk about George Washington being a slave owner? I remember learning that from my father. He told me about that. How come you never talk about that, Miss Funkenheimer? Well, see, that's true, but then, then here comes the buts. And then what happens, unfortunately, with that child is sometimes when that child is starting to be more inquisitive, that child you may think is not paying attention. Them the ones you got to watch. Them the ones who paying attention. Trust. I know. Okay. Them kids that you see them fiddling around or whatever, they the one, they listening, they taking it all in. And they're just waiting. Sometimes they if they feel like they want to say something, they want to ask a question or they want to, give their opinion on something they may. But that child, especially if they have these behavioral issues, right? They don't know how to sit still in that box. That box we call the desk. They don't know how to sit still in that, right? So now it's, well, I think they need to be tested. They in second grade. Okay? You already trying to throw some tests and some labels and everything else on them. It's not the behavioral piece. A lot of times it's the fact that that child has asked questions that you're not prepared to answer. Which brings me to the point of the reflecting of when he went to South Carolina and how that one lady, Mary, was like, yes, you should come here, please, because they are banning your book, Between the World and Me. I want my students to be able to read this book. They need to have diversity in their literature. They don't need to be reading the same ish all over again. That's boring. Our kids should not be made to be carbon copies of one another. They should be reading many different things, just like Malcolm X talked about. Read as much as you can. Everything you get your hands on, you read it. You may not agree. It's going to be a lot of stuff you're not going to agree with. But just like you learn when you have an argumentative class, you don't just learn your side, you have to learn the counter argument. You have to learn what they're talking about so you can know how to be able to counter what they're saying. You have to learn the opposition. How you just gonna come in there just knowing what you do? That don't make sense. You're gonna lose. You have to know both sides. And so, again, another reflective moment, another beautiful moment that Ta-Nehisi has delivered in this book, The Message, right? Some other points that I talked about in here. He said, I love this too. He said, books work when no one else is looking. That was on page 87. Books work when no one else is looking. All right. And when he was talking about, matter of fact, let me read the bottom of this, right? Of that page. He said, I wish I were better at that part, expecting. But the fact is that even as I know and teach the power of writing, I still find myself in disbelief when I see that power at work in the real world. Maybe it is the nature of books. Film, music, the theater, all can be experienced amidst the hooping, the clapping, and cheering of the crowd, right? But he said books work when no one else is looking. Mind melding author and audience, forging an imagined world that only the reader can see. Their power is so intimate, so insidious, that even its authors don't always comprehend it. Like the thing that I get from this brother is that he literally wants you to take a deep dive into who you are and into the world around us, in your relationship into the world. This is what I was getting from his book, The Message. It's like that message was raining all through the book. Be unapologetic. Have courage. Speak the truth even when it's against your own self. These are things, these are lessons that I truly believe that he was trying his best to impart in this book. Which leads me, of course, to the last part, because this book was broken up into 4 parts. Again, he was reflecting on his 3 different visits to Dakar, Senegal, to South Carolina, and in his final visit, he talked about when he was there in Palestine, right? And of course, when you read, and which I'm happy about this, but real talk, when you read that section, when he's talking about taking the visits and talking about the apartheid system that he witnessed, that he saw, of how the police officers would steal their time, meaning when they had to go, when they were being guided into certain places, of course they had to be escorted in certain places or whatever the case may be, and how the officers would just be like, okay, you got to wait here. No explanation. Yeah, you got to wait. You can't even, oh, okay, you got to wait. Oh, okay, hour go by, you got to wait 2 hours. What we waiting on? What's going on? And that's what he talked about. Oh, he realized they're doing it because they can. That's the kind of sick, demonic system that he saw set up, where you had the Israelis, they on one tier, you had the Palestinians, they were in the garbage tier. This is what he saw and how he made those connections. He said, wow, why is this resonating with me? Why is this something that's like getting to penetrating my soul? Oh, I know why. Because I done seen this ish before. It's called apartheid. It's called Jim Crow. It's called what happened to our ancestors when they were enslaved. It's called the segregation. It's called what's happening right now. Yeah, it may not be a thing where we're going places and we're experiencing somebody, just all of the horrors, the tortures that they're dealing with right now, in terms of what we're seeing stories about. These doctors are seeing children coming to the hospital literally with bullet wounds in the head. Or you of course, the over 100,000 deaths of Palestinian people, where literally they said there are families, and I don't know the count, how many families where literally they're not even on their registry anymore. You know how, every you go to any place and your family, the names of the mothers, the fathers, the children, the grandparents, everybody is documented. You have literally families that are wiped out. Nobody is alive in the family, none. But how he talked about they want to keep focusing when he was there. Everything is October 7th, October 7th. Yeah, I mean, just being immersed in that. They want to make sure that they are pumping that in your head. Don't forget, the reason why we're blowing them to smithereens is because of October 7th. But how he talked about in this book, though, he gave us information. One of the references that he made was from an author. Her name is Noura Erakat. Noura Erakat. Her book is entitled, what is her book? Justice. I'm going to get that book name, and I'm going to, let's see, Noura Erakat. Erakat. Yes. So he referenced the book by Noura Erakat called Justice for Some, Law and the Question of Palestine. Okay? So he was once again bringing out his education roots, right? That research roots. Remember how I told you about how his father told him, here, I want you to go read the story about this brother, that football player, David Stingley. I want you to go read about him. He was allowing those roots, that foundation, that core that he was raised in, that was coming out. He can't get away from that. Why would he want to get away from that, though? Why do you want somebody? Here it is. We're in this place where, this United States, and how they want to be known as, oh, yes, we're about education and, free. This is the free world, right? But here it is. Somebody has the freedom to be able to articulate what they saw, the destruction, the horrors, where literally it jolts your soul. And then he's getting education. And he talked about, which was phenomenal, 2 of the men who were former IDF soldiers, how they realized, they said, I can't do this no more. What the F are we doing? What in the F are we doing? How he talked about, one of the soldiers talked about how they had the gun to one of the Palestinians, and he had his daughter right there. And of course, they got the gun guarding him. Next thing you know, he looked down, he see his daughter. She wet on herself because she's so freaking scared. She's so dang on scared. Or he talked to about the family, the one man where they were asked to be uprooted. They were living in their cave. And just like how you talked about, it's not like what we envision. A lot of times you think of cave, you think of the Neanderthals, right? No. Okay. He's talking about folks, they're living in places where these were places that have been there for hundreds of years from the people who were already there in the land, and then being told they had to be uprooted just for no reason. Yes, that was very familiar to him because he knows that's what happened to our people. This is what happened to Black folks. From the moment that stinking, nasty, filthy white supremacist said, I'm going to go into Africa and I'm going to start taking the people. I'm going to take their resources. I'm going to take the people. Why? Because I can. Manifest destiny. Wherever I put my foot, wherever I step in, it's mine. Shh. Say it ain't mine. I got this gun right here. That'll tell you different. That's who we up against. That's who we dealing with. And that's what the brother was talking about. You got to have courage to do that. You got to have the mindset of, I don't like this ish. You have to have the mindset of, I want human beings to live the best versions of themselves. And this ain't it. This ain't happening here. They're not living the best versions of themselves in an oppressive regime. Sounds familiar, eerily familiar, don't it? Sound like some Black folks dealing with still to this day. And this is what he was choosing, okay? Because this was his choice. Because he could have simply, just like he said, he could have simply just been like, sat on this and literally probably almost went crazy. Because I can only imagine. I think about when I read the slave narratives, when I read the book about Harriet Jacobs, The Incidents of the Life of a Slave Girl, and she talked about how she literally was living like underneath a floorboard, underneath the floor for 7 years. I didn't say 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 whole years under there because she was planning her escape from that nasty enslaver. Because she knew, she like, okay, I have to make it so that I'm gone, and I have to stay here for as long as I believe and think that he's gonna believe that I'm never coming back. That was her plan. Having to be prepped, having to, be told as a little girl, like, okay, yes, these things you're gonna get raped. So I have to, prep you, because that's what our ancestors, the elderly women, they had to do, unfortunately, until you had those women who decided they weren't going to take this no more. This right here, this work what Ta-Nehisi Coates was doing, I truly believe was helping to ignite that flame in us, those of us, especially those in the Black community, first and foremost, because we understand what oppression looks like. I don't care. You can be rich. You could be that rich Black person, middle class, whatever class. One thing's for certain, in a system of the false notion of white supremacy, they're going to remind you that no, we are superior over you. Why? Because the way we were created. So we have this white skin and this straight hair and these thin noses, right? And so, see, this is what makes us better. And also too, we dominated y'all. We took all your stuff. We were able to, the survival of the fittest. We were the ones who were able to put you in a system, in a place of subjugation. So that's why that means we're superior. Oh, in fact, too, because God told us that. See, God told us to beat you, to torture you, to rape you, to steal babies from their mother's arms, to rape the men, rape the women, rape the girls, rape the boys, wash, rinse, repeat. God told us to do all that. Right? Just like God telling the Israelis to do that to the Palestinians. You hear stories about them, some of them being raped, the torture, how they are literally making it so that they can't even, they don't, the reporting is not coming. They're trying everything they can to slash any type of media where the Palestinians are able to speak for themselves. Again, referencing the book. This is one of the main reasons why he was talking about this. He said, listen, man, like, what Palestinian have we seen that has been able to talk about what's going on? We keep hearing the Israeli narrative. We keep hearing, the devil Netanyahu, his narrative, and all them other folks. We are the Palestinians. Where are their voices? And that's why, again, he was able to have that heartfelt description and talking about all these different things he saw. Here it is. You got the Israelis. They got the lavish swimming pools and the beach fronts. I mean, just looking beautiful. They kicking it. They got the nice restaurants. They just living lavish and lovely. But here it is. You got the Palestinians. I heard one news report on Democracy Now! From this surgeon that talked about there was one area where a lot of Palestinians had to go to, and there was only, what did he say? One toilet for 4,000 people? Huh? What? Yeah, that's the kind of ish that's happening. Okay? And we have to speak out against it. That's what Ta-Nehisi was saying. He said, when you seeing what you're seeing, and he's a writer, he's a journalist. He's loved words and reading and researching from birth Okay? This is what he was raised around. You think he's supposed to sit up there and see that stuff and then not say nothing about it because he's afraid of what somebody may do? They may try to yank the money. They try to, like the one CBS a little goofy behind talking about, you take away the accolades, you take away the stickers and all the beautiful awards that we gave you, Negro. Then it wouldn't be out of place in an extremist pocket. Your book. Like, really? Shut up, you little corny behind. And I wish that Ta-Nehisi should have said, no, when he at the end, he was like, at the end of the video, he gonna tell Ta-Nehisi, yeah, you're still invited to the dinner. I'd have been like, nigga, I'm coming to your house. You ain't gotta never invite. Matter of fact, scratch my name off your list. Scratch me off. Unsay my name. Don't even say my name no more. You're not gonna sit up here and come on here and attack me like I can't speak out against injustice. Really? You done lost your everlasting mind. You done lost your everlasting mind. And that's how we have to be, y'all, for real. And this is what I got from this book. These are the reflections that I got. Having the courage. We have to have the strength to stand up. Speak out against injustice. This comes from my tradition in the Black community, the Black tradition, the Malcolm X, okay? Maya Angelou, all right? You talk about Kwame Nkrumah, okay? You talk about Stokely Carmichael, all right? You talk about Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Fannie Lou Hamer, okay? Ella Baker, Ida B. Wells, what? Come on. That sister wasn't no freaking joke. Harriet Tubman, come on now. Rethinking people. This is what we gotta be on. This is what we gotta be telling our children. They have to understand. They can't go through the world thinking that, well, this is it. Like, we just gotta brunt and bear it. Like, we're not supposed to say anything. Like, I see this injustice right here. I literally see people living in squalor and filth and garbage and nastiness, and they have guns over their heads. I see these people over here. They're being told well, you have to have this certain kind of credit. You have to have this, certain kind of way you speak, and you can't name your child this because that's not going to get them the job. Remember, see, that false notion of white supremacy, it look a whole bunch of plethora of ways. That ain't just somebody holding a gun, right? We got to make sure we speak the correct proper English when we go to different places. Because see, we have to sound professional, right? We got to do that. Because see, when we do that, then we're showing that we mean business. We got to go like this a lot. And, oh, yes, and da-da-da. We all do it. We all, yes. But for those of us who at least are like, you know what? I'm tired of this crap, man. And so it's a lot of different things that we see in terms of, again, where this notion of white supremacy shows itself up in different spaces, in different ways. It's not just somebody just, trying to tell you that you can't go over here, or this fountain is for only Black folks or white folks. No, now it's embedded in the system. Now it's seeing things, for example, where you have to make a certain amount of money to live in this particular neighborhood. If you don't make $100,000 or more, then you can't live over here. If you making under 30,000 or 50,000 or less, then you got to live here, and your kids got to go here. Now, unless you're gonna go broke and try your best to pay that private school fee, and then we're gonna attack all other fees on it as well, because we're gonna do our best to make it extremely hard for you. We're gonna choke the hell out of you to make sure that you will never try to have your kids go to our schools, ever. You stay down there. You go to them schools over there. Y'all go and fight each other and have metal detectors and have teachers who can care less about you. And we're going to make sure you get food that's not fit for any type of human being. Y'all have that, because we're going to have this over here. And now, unless you can afford it now, then you're welcome. As long as you got the money, we're not going to deny you the right to live here. You can afford it, right? So what is it that you do again? Can you tell me? So this is what we deal with. This is what that false notion of white supremacy look like. And so again, I'm going to end here because I know I can go on and on, but I just wanted to, like I said, I wanted to root my reflections in what I got, the message that I got and gathered from his book, which is number one, make sure that you read to your kids. Make sure that your children have books all around them. Make sure that they learn about Black history, Black people, Black traditions and cultures and experiences. Make sure that you spend time with your children. Value those moments. Make sure that your children see you reading. Make sure that you are always doing the best that you can to create a positive environment for your children so that it allows them to bring out their gifts. Because when our children are constantly in environments to where we're always on them, we are not uplifting them. We think that we're supposed to go off all the time. We think that we're supposed to have them conform to what this educational system is, then we actually suppress their gifts. And I say, alhamdulillah, all praises due to God. The Ta-Nehisi Coates, he had the kind of parents that he had, and it allowed him to be able to, at an early age, see what kind of person that he wanted to be and what he wanted to bring and offer to the world. So there you have it. I thank you all for listening. And of course, I'm going to highly recommend that you read this book. I actually started reading it again to take more notes on it so that I can be able to, as much as possible, effectively and coherently stay on point in referencing the book. So with that being said, I thank you all again for listening to another episode of Real Reading Talk. My name is Ms. Sasha. And remember, Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have low levels of literacy, or we want to say high levels of illiteracy in the Black community, and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, you and I, us. All right, y'all, take care. And please remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. I hope you all gained a lot of insight, and I hope most importantly, I hope that my reflections is going to lead you to making sure that you read the book for yourself. Because again, just like how you talked about in the book, everybody has their own intimate relationship with the book, right? Any book, piece of writing that you read, and you make sure that you hold on to that, okay? Everybody is bringing something differently to that book, whatever book they're reading. And so I hope that you all gain lots of insight, a lot of benefit as well from the book. Again, I am a pre-K through fourth grade reading tutor. ABC Learn Tutoring is the name of my tutoring business. Go to abclearntutoring.com to sign your child up today. All right. And I'm also a certified dyslexia tutor as well. And I'm also the founder of ABC Read, our nonprofit organization. We've given away over 7,000 books. Make sure you go to abcread.org to check out what we've been doing. And I hope that you guys see what we're doing and would love to make a donation to our organization. And of course, this podcast will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, Reading is Freedom. So please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, comment, and hit the notification bell, all of that, all right? We need it, and I thank you all for those of you who have been subscribing. The subscribership has gone up exponentially, y'all. I'm like, wow, and I appreciate y'all for that, big time. And Reading is Freedom. That is the merch that I sell, as you all see. Bam! You see the mug? Bam! So you guys will, Reading is Freedom is the line, readingisfreedom.store. So please make sure that you go check it out and count your merch, okay? Because we need to spread this message, all right? We need to be walking billboards when it comes to promoting literacy, okay? And of course, then I'm gonna leave you all with this. Of course, the book I recommend, Read the Message, all right? My next book that I have to finish reading is Copper Sun by Sharon M. Draper. I've been reading that book along with my son, Yusuf, as well as my student, Dylan. So please make sure that you guys, that's a book I highly recommend you check out as well. And I want to leave you all with this quote: Daddy reads all the time. Daddy says he reads to learn. Okay, so this was the caption under Ta-Nehisi Coates' father, Paul Coates' picture of him reading a book. All right, y'all. Thank you all again for listening. My name is Miss Seisha, and you all take care. Remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom.